Welcome back to Mind Your Biz. My name is Seth, and in today's creator highlight episode, I've got a sort of a special treat. This might be a two-parter, so stay tuned to the end. Do not go anywhere. It's my great pleasure to bring to you one of the co-founders and the executive team of the Decentral Live event series, who's gone on to become something of an advisor phenom and also a builder in his own right, talking to us about his journey, about everything that he's done up to this point. And then if we're lucky, we get to hear a little more about what he's working on in this episode. If not, we might have to bring him back for another one. I'm pleased to welcome Michael Huynh. Michael, welcome to Mind Your Biz.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. I mean, this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. As you know, when you've been running the Decentral series of events, I'm always there, willing to assist, willing to help with moderating panels. And behind the scenes, I see how much work you and Esther and Justin put into that event series, which is why I'm always like, dude, the least I can do is help out here or there, whether it's stage support or just like corralling speakers, right, to be able to manage a stage like we did in Miami. So no, I see that you're a tireless individual, right? You can use a $5 word, indefatigable. Like you've got quite a bit of energy, and you make it look easy, man. You really do. So really appreciate you making time for this, and yeah, being able to talk a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, definitely. It's all for the community, you know. So like whenever you're like, hey, Michael's always running around and kind of like it looks really, really tiring. It's the payoff is basically for the crypto community. So like we throw them a good activation, we throw them a great time. And the main thing is like bringing our core community together. So like for me, it's like, it's not work. It's kind of like, it's pleasure. So it doesn't feel like work. And yeah, excited to kind of be on here. And thanks for also helping out during the events as well, like with us and kind of like our teams. It is a lot of stuff going on. There's stages, there's attendees, ticketing, all these things. So thank you for helping out as well.
Hey, it's just a small part. Seriously, I only brought it up because it's something that I enjoy doing when I'm there. But I mean, I don't have to live with all the prep work for months before, or all of the post-mortem, right? Like follow-up of vendors and stuff for months afterwards. You guys put in, like, it becomes your life for a time. So I really appreciate just how much effort you and Esther and Justin put into it. I think it's worthy of public mention and praise because you guys put in so much work. But let's get selfish here. Like, let's get just a little bit selfish. Let's talk about you, just you. All right. For the Mind Your Biz audience or community that might not know you, do you mind giving people sort of a, who is Michael in 30 seconds type spiel?
Yeah, I am kind of like I like to be the hidden force within crypto. The reason why is because the ones that are building within crypto, like we're here to support them. So it's like builders are going to build and we're always there to support them. And kind of like how I started out my crypto journey actually was pretty funny. I was at a party and one of my friends actually jumped off of a truck and got into a little bit of an accident. I ended up saving his life. So I was like holding in a little bit of his, holding in blood and everything to save his life. And at that time, I didn't know anything about crypto, didn't understand nothing about blockchain. And after the incident, he was literally like, hey, Michael, since you saved my life, I want to save yours. So he kind of like talked to me about Bitcoin. And from there, I was like getting a little bit more interested. I eventually ended up working with him. And this is where basically everything started. So in the beginning, I started at crypto marketing. I was doing crypto marketing with Lunar Digital Assets. And from there, we were able to work with Polygon, Chromia, Persistence, QuickSwap. There's a bunch of others as well. And from that was kind of like the early blossoms of me getting into crypto, finding out how to get into crypto, what is everything, learning as much as I can. I would remember I still had a full-time job. I would literally come home after like pulling a double at a restaurant and pulling a double, which is like 12 hours. And then from there, also go home and study and learn about crypto. And from that, it just kicked off a spark for me that I was like, this is something that I want to be in. So in 2017, I decided to go full time. I said, you know what? No more lollygagging around. I decided to fully push into it and never looked back. It was kind of like the industry has so many people coming in, so many products, innovations, and everything. There's so much people. There's so much people building in crypto that it's like I can scan as long as I can every single day, 24 hours a day, and I can still not figure out the end of all the projects.
Yeah, no, that's a fact right there. What you're saying about not being able to fully stay on the bleeding edge of everything that's happening in crypto. You can specialize now, and you can kind of be focused on maybe a couple of sort of directions of development or trends in development, but and then whether those are cross chain or not. But in some cases, it does kind of lock you into just one chain or ecosystem when you're trying to become that expert. It's almost impossible to know it all. And anybody who tells you that they do, like, sure, okay.
And if they say they know it all, I'm like, hey, why don't the hedge funds and kind of like all these big companies hire you? Like, right. you can never predict the markets at all. You can never predict what the trends are in terms of like trends a little bit, but like not too much of like, hey, this is the company or this is the coin and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, completely agreed there. Completely agreed. It's kind of funny. So just random anecdote to that point. So I was talking to Jason Appleton, Crypto Crow. People in our scene know him because he started publishing about these same years, like you were talking about, where you and I got involved in crypto marketing or publishing or both. And he's been around a while. And I mentioned to him a project that he hadn't heard of, and I thought everybody knew about it. And it just seemed like he was so focused on the Cardano ecosystem that he almost couldn't take the blinders off and look anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So there's this gem, like, and I know he would have loved to have gotten portfolio exposure to it 4 years ago, and he just didn't know about it. He barely learned about it a couple of weeks ago, while we were just talking informally on this interview, right? This interview series here. So it was like, oh yeah, right. Even like the OGs, the people who've been doing whatever, right? Like publishing or media or building. It's very easy to get siloed because you kind of have to, in order to get good at anything, like become a deep expert. You have to have the blinders on. So definitely appreciate that about you. But you mentioned working in marketing early on and getting exposure to a couple of ecosystems. You mentioned Polygon, early days when it was Matic, at this marketing agency where I believe that Lunar Digital Assets was the agency of record for Polygon or Matic at that time. Is that right? I mean, yeah, that's a pretty amazing feat. Great feather in your cap to be able to say that. Disclosure, right? Like, I'm still on the roster at Lunar Digital Assets. I think technically you're still on the roster too. I think you're still listed.
I don't get paid though.
I know. Anyway, it's a subject for another time. I'm not mad at them, right? But it's
no. That's not what I meant. I meant like, I'm still a part of the team. It's because of like the stature of the name, right? Like we built it over time, and like whenever people are like, "Oh, are you still with Lunar Digital Assets?" Like, I know that it's my friends. It's people that I've been working with for the past few years.
Yes,
it's like I would never leave.
Yeah, no, I have basically the exact same feeling. Even doing other marketing like freelance and stuff, I have incredibly strong ties to the Lunar Digital Assets team and just good people, right? So important part of the network to keep alive and take care of. So let's talk a little more about, like, with your background, getting into not getting into cryptocurrency. You mentioned sort of the genesis story there, and it's really cool, like the life-saving moment with a friend who then said, "I'm going to save your life." Let's go before that. Who was Michael before any of that stuff happened? Because you mentioned working double shifts at a restaurant. Before that, like you did go the route of formal education, I think, right? So you've got. All right. Hey, cool. Let's talk about that. So who was that guy?
All right. So I'll kind of like start at my childhood, and kind of like kickstart it from there. So like growing up, my family wasn't the richest. Like I wouldn't even consider us middle class. We were actually fairly poor. And so for me, it was always about learning as much as I can. And my parents made it an effort to not show the struggles. But after a while, you start kind of like noticing. For me, I was a very bright child. I was a really bright child, and you can start telling. It's like around like the age of 4 and 5. It's like, all right, they're arguing a lot. What's going on? And then you hear money and all these things. So for me, it was always about, how do I make them not argue? Like, that's the thing that I wanted to. I was like, how do I make them not argue? Oh, if I can give them some money. How do I make money? And I would look up and try to create ways to basically make money. So in the beginning phase, in like kindergarten and in first grade, I actually sold Pokemon cards. I was in kindergarten selling Pokemon cards, and then I graduated to Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but in first grade. And my first grade teacher, I still remember her name, Miss Knight. She literally had a parent teacher conference with my mom, and was like, "Your son is selling cards at school, and he's making money." The teacher confiscated $200 from me. $200 as a first grader is a lot of money.
Yeah.
She confiscated $200 from me. What I did was I also sold to the second grader and third grades. So like during recess, which it's like a block, it's 30-minute block, I would actually walk over to the other playground where the bigger kids were, and that's where I would sell my Pokemon cards. And she at one point she told my mom, "Hey, look, I think he's too smart for he's gifted, or he's really smart for a first grader. Could we push him to fourth grade?" Which means that I would have skipped I would skip second grade and third grade and just go straight to fourth grade. And if I went that path, I would graduate high school at 15, like around 15, 16-ish or time frame.
Yeah.
My mom said no.
Provided it wasn't an exponential curve and you didn't accelerate even further by jumping ahead again after fourth grade. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just for me, it was like, I always love learning. And whenever I go into a subject or try to find something this is my mission, right? My mission was to, how do I make it to where my parents don't argue? Find money. I made money in school. Teacher found out. And my mom actually said no, because she's like, he might get bullied. And that was what she was really scared of, me getting bullied. So I breezed through second grade and third grade and fourth grade and stuff like that too. But what I found out was, like, during those times, since I was bored, I would find other ways to make money. So I would then graduate from Yu-Gi-Oh cards to back then there was these floppy disks. And within the floppy disk, you could place like small games, and you would have to have like 10 floppy disks in order to play one game. I would then sell those games in school.
Well, copy protection is not very good on games that were distributed.
It was horrible. It was really, really horrible. I would come up with a stack and be like, "Here's your game," and they're like, "What do I do?" I should just put it in one at a time.
Games on the desk. Noted. All right. I'm not even mad. Like, that's great.
And then I graduated to CDs. So around fifth grade or so, it was basically songs. So like a lot of the teachers were literally like, "Hey, how do you find these songs, and how do you place them onto a CD? I just want to play it in my car." I was like, "Miss, it's just $5. I can do it for you. Don't worry." LimeWire, place the songs on, burn it onto the CD, and sell those. And the entire time, like, for me, is like, as an entrepreneur, it was kind of like raw cost goes out, profits go to my family, then go to my mom. And at one point, she was like, where are you getting all this money, like, in school? Like, what's going on?
I was like, "Mom, the only thing you need to know is it's not drugs."
Yeah, well, she, after a while, she literally thought it was drugs, or I was doing something wrong in the school, like I was stealing or something, right? Like, especially when it got to my teenage years, she was like, are you selling drugs? And I was like, no, I'm actually making money, and this is how I do it. And I would tell her every Friday we would go to Walmart, because I need to buy the big stack of CDs so I can burn through all of them and sell them.
Right. Well, you had to get the right ones, because in a stack of 50 of those, you'd have whatever 3 or maybe up to 6 that were duds. Right? Mm-hmm. The right session wouldn't close properly, or it would just fail in some of the. Man, I remember those days. I get it. Good for you.
I remember a stack of 20 was $10, and I would sell, depending if it was like depending on the songs, I would actually sell one CD for $10. So I would clear the other 19 CDs that are on there. It was all basically profit.
Sure. Well, I'm sure at that age you had to have been tempted to only sell a few from each stack and then use the rest for other projects. And it sounds like you were a curious and very interested kid. So I'm sure you had other little science experiments going on at the same time. But
yeah.
Let's talk about that. What kind of hobbies and activities did you do? I mean, the extracurriculars, clearly one of them was like, hey, make money, right? Get rich or die trying. But like, what other stuff did you do by way of, cultural enrichment? Did you play sports? Did you learn an instrument?
I did play sports. So this is where it kind of ties in a little bit with the entrepreneur side. And it's kind of it's a progression along life as well. So for the so basically during middle school and early of high school, I was basically at home, and for me it was selling candy in school, coming home, and then using it to play games. So for me it was like, this is the only way that I can connect with my cousins in California, was just playing this game called Maple Story. Eventually I found out how to make money through that game as well. I became one of the biggest market makers within the game. There's a lot of things that can kind of go on, but this game's over 20 years old and it's still here. They're coming out with a blockchain version, by the way. I'm definitely waiting, but
you're not involved in this.
No. I'm waiting for them to come out with it, because I'm just gonna let them do their thing, and I want to see how it comes out. Because like for me, it's like finding out the early days of it is like, now that they're coming into the NFT scene, it's like they're and kind of like the blockchain scene, is that in the beginning days, I was able to monetize in-game currencies, sell them online, and basically get money to give to my mom, right? And now it's kind of like you're now going into the digital assets portion, where it could be NFTs. You can now have ownership of it. And now it just basically legitimizes and says, hey, look, whatever you were doing before, we banned like 5 from your accounts, but now it's okay. Yeah, now they're starting to see the other, like the way that technology could work with it.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to wait for it to come out. But like through for sports, I was actually on the swim team and also golf team. I was captain of both of them for my school. Swimming is actually my preferred one, though. The swimming was
lettered in both, obviously. Yeah, that's cool. Well, I mean, lettering in the first place and then actually getting decent at the game, right, or the sport, is a pretty big deal. But you went above and beyond. You became captain while still doing well.
Yeah, well, captain was kind of like because for me, I was the fastest one on the team, so they would always place me in all the heavy ones. And then also for me too, it's like I always like the challenge. So like whenever I get beat at a swim meet, whether it's a 100-yard backstroke or a relay and everything, I would tell them to record it to see why did I fail or what happened within the team, so that we know how to beat them next time. And after a while, they were like, hey, you know what, you should definitely try out the 500-yard. There's a swimming event called the 500-yard freestyle, which is basically 20 laps of the pool, and it's 50 it's 50 yards each time. I mean, 25 yards each time, so it's 20 laps. It was all about endurance. So for me, it was like that was the biggest challenge, and I took that thing every single time just to prove that I can do it. The first time, I almost died, but afterwards, I got really competitive with it.
That's awesome. Okay, so all right, so clearly then you were interested in sort of like semi-individual sports where there's still a team score, right? So golf and swimming, those really, it's kind of funny because those teams I did aquatics also in high school, and I'm a little bit familiar with them, with the ranking systems and what it takes to be a good team member and how you operate on a team like that. So I can see that, right, where you're very interested in the individual score and doing very well individually and having nobody else to depend on for your individual score, but then also having to rally the rest of the team so that the team score was good against other schools. Mm-hmm. And infer a lot about you by just knowing that. That's really, really cool, man. And it does kind of feed or help inform my perception of you, my experience of you as a professional too, now later on in life. But let's fast forward a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I'll just ask the point of no return for you in crypto. You mentioned there were a couple things like moving forward in the story that you had your friend introduce you to crypto, say this is really important, and you said it clicked for you at a certain point. What were some things that were happening in your life that made it a do or die thing, where you realized like there's no future version of Michael that does not involve cryptocurrency at its, fundamentally? What was that point of no return?
I think it was kind of like so for me, it was like whenever I'm interested in something, I want to learn to the best of my ability and learn everything about it. And I think the other side that it's like a really, really competitive nature of me, of like, and so right after high school, I went to the Marines. So for me, going into the military, it it gave me a 180. It literally switched my whole projective of like what my goals were and everything like that. The only thing though afterwards is that I noticed when I came back to civilian life, I got lazy. I got really, really complacent because I was like, I'm just tired. You know, I'm trying to just slow down the pace again. I'm young. I'm just gonna, you know, take it as it is. And it, you know, I didn't have any motivation for a while. And for me, it was, I wanted to, once again, still provide and help with my family. So I was like, you know what, I'll go find a job. I applied to like 200 jobs within 2 days. Like I was just like anything. I was like, I'm an open book. I can do whatever it is. I'm there to take one for the team, even if I, you know, anything.
Yeah.
I applied for like 200 jobs. I think 5 of them called me back and was like, "You're hired." And I was like, "Cool." And I ended up going into working in restaurants for a little bit. So I did the whole journey up from busboy, server, bartender, manager.
No, it totally makes sense, man. As a young person, it is like the ultimate life hack is to work in the service industry where you can earn sizable tips. Like, why would you work in anything else as a young person if you got the energy to deal with the services? Like, why would you do anything else when, you know, when the rewards are like it's way outsized? I think that or high ticket sales, right? Cars or something else. As a young person, if you got the energy, I don't see why you wouldn't. Makes sense.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of like I always liked food, so it was kind of like also like it kind of fits both in. And after a while, it was like I started moving up the ranks. I started becoming assistant manager, assistant general manager, GM, and everything. And I ended up working at a Michelin star restaurant, a Michelin star. Uh, uh, basically, it's like a sister. So basically, it's from Hakkasan. It's called Yawacha. Yawacha is a Michelin star restaurant in London, but they had one in Houston. So that they still follow the same standards and everything. I decided to stay and be a server. The reason why is because I found out I can actually make more on tips than my managers, and sometimes they get a little bit jealous. Like, how are you doing it? I'm just being me. But
you look them dead in the eyes and say, "Guys, it's not drugs." Same thing you get tell your mom
like,
earlier.
"You want to be promoted?" I was like, "No, I'm good right where I'm at." And I used that extra time to look into crypto. The pivoting point for me was basically, is this something that I really enjoy for the rest of my life? Or is this something that, like, for me, is like I always wanted to strive for something with purpose, right? If I work in the restaurant industry, I'm not saying there's no purpose in there. I'm saying like you would have to, per the person, right? For me, I don't feel like that would have been my final destination. And once I started learning more about crypto, it was kind of like I fell into the rabbit hole of like, holy crap, like I actually really understand this. And I think this is something that's needed. And it's an industry that not a lot of people know about. I know it is a little bit of a niche industry, but it also kind of pushes into all different specters. Like back then, it was more of like the finance side, the tech side. It was more of the kind of like community building side and everything. And kind of like seeing, also at that time too, I was like, hey, I have a little bit extra cash because I have more tips. I want to invest. So instead of just blindly going in and just investing in everything, I was like, let me just research some of these things. So I was actually researching stocks, and then I started researching crypto, and that's where crypto kind of took over and was like, I don't think stocks would be the perfect one for me. And then I really, really dug into the finance rabbit hole, and that then led me over to crypto is here, and this is what I really want to be at.
Got it. Okay, that's awesome, man. Well, let's talk about, so you've been working in earnest kind of full time in crypto since 2017 now. 2017, 2018, that area was like you hitting your stride and not earning from anything else in any meaningful way, just crypto. What would you say are some of the biggest wins that you've had since then? I know that there's quite a bit, but like in your mind, what really stands out as like the pinnacle of achievement from what you've done so far?
I think that for me, it was, so when I came into crypto marketing, I didn't know anything at all. I didn't even know regular marketing at all. I came in with LDA and it was literally like, we'll teach you. I'm like, okay, I'm here to learn. But then, you know, it's like you can only teach someone so much and they would have to learn outside. So that's what I did. I would learn marketing tactics. I would learn how, like, basically how communities work, all these things. I would actually look up like documentaries. I would look up like books to read and everything about different different community building tactics and everything. But then I noticed something, and it was like Web 2 versus Web 3. It did not mix too well, because like some of the tactics that you implement in from the traditional side doesn't fit into the crypto way. So for me, I kept on asking questions. I'd rather be the dumbest person in the room and ask a million questions and try to understand than to not ask questions and just sit there and never learn. So I just asked questions. I would reach out to people in other Telegram groups or other communities. I'm like, hey, how are you guys doing this? Oh, what's this about? I would go in there and I would actually test to be a user. So like some of these projects I'm actually looking to invest in and stuff. So I'm like, let me go into their community and see how they're doing their community management. What is their messaging? What is their copy? What services are they using? Who's part of their teams? Things like that. I would reach out to them and ask them a lot of questions. Be like, hey, just, as a community manager, how are you kind of like focusing on this and stuff? So that's where I would learn, is basically from the community, just asking as much as I can.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so then it sounds like for you, one of the biggest wins was just leveling up into a marketing pro. I mean, you're a powerhouse, dude. Anybody who knows you knows that you're very capable when it comes to Web3 marketing. And that's like across the board, digital marketing as well as IRL activations and experiential stuff. That's not common in our industry, as you know. It's really not common for somebody to have the sort of the breadth and depth of knowledge that you do, and not just knowledge, but ability that you do in rallying teams and in actually executing this stuff. So I would say that's huge, man. That's huge. That when I ask you about achievement, you're like, no, learning.
Learning is an achievement to me, because like everything else is just a byproduct of you learning. I think the ultimate thing for me is like, if I did, learning as much as I can from it. In terms of like highlights and stuff, yes, there is like a few campaigns here and there, but for me, it's like the journey is actually more rewarding than the actual product that's being placed out. So for me, it's kind of like, how did I get to creating a campaign that made 5,000 plus people join a campaign for free with no incentive, and from there also had it to where there was no rewards, created a custom custom treasure hunt or a custom campaign to where it's actually engaging, and they stayed and became community members and was like, holy crap, like when are you doing the next one? Compared to, hey, if I was spending X amount of dollars and all these things and it doesn't convert, like that would be really hurtful. Like it would hurt my heart. But for me, I was like, I wanted a challenge. And the reason why we kind of like every single time in marketing, it's like you go from community manager, you go to marketing manager, you go to maybe CMO. And then from there, it's like, what's the next goal of marketing? It's events.
Cool. All right. So it sounds like this is the segue into the Decentral series of events. To talk about that just really, really briefly, big wins with Decentral. I've enjoyed every single event that you guys have put on. Even the smaller satellite events, like the one that was attached to like ETH Denver, where you didn't have a core event. It was technically a satellite event and mixer. I enjoyed all of them. I've enjoyed every Decentral event that I've gone to. But in your mind, what stands out as sort of like the peak of achievement between the team, Justin and Esther and yourself?
I think the peak portion is basically in the beginning, we started out as a team of 3, literally just me, Justin, and Esther. And we were able to grow our team to like 15 to 20 and everything. But the biggest achievement is kind of like knowing that we're compatible as a team. Because like a lot of founders would go through 2, 3, 4 years and they're like, oh, this doesn't work out. Or, hey, look, maybe there's something missing, or there's problems and all these things arise up. I think that for us, the way that we were able to scale and kind of like how we executed was because we are very similar in terms of work ethic. For me, it was like I would stay up sometimes like 3 days straight, just pushing through on not sponsorships, but like pushing through like content, creating talks, doing all these things. For me, it was like that I would message Justin and he's like, yeah, bro, I've been up 3 days too. And I was like, we haven't even been talking on Discord. I was like, what's going on? He's like, yeah, sorry, I'm just in the zone. And same thing for Esther too. It's like we're all, whenever we're working, we're in our zone. We can trust each other that it's gonna get done, and we don't have to handhold and all these things. But we have the similar drive, and I think that's what's really effective for us. really execute like a large scale conference. Miami 2021 was 5,000 attendees, 200 plus companies, countless, I mean, like 40, 50 plus side activations, satellite events, all these things. It was still a team of, what was a team of 4 at that time, a team of 4. So I had to bring on my brother in order. I was like, bro, I need help. He's like, what? I was like, I'll teach you everything. Just follow me. It was just 4 people to kind of push through the entire event.
That stands out in my mind too as being very impressive. All the stage management, all, like you mentioned, the satellite events and after parties. Even it says something when the main official after party of an event is actually worth going to, and when the main official mixer after the event is actually worth going to. You guys did both. Like the you remember the venue, right? I do too, because you guys did well at making sure that when people were staying through the final speeches, the final stage events, right, the final panels, that they had a reason to stick around. And so afterwards, there was this little catered area for the VIPs that kind of incentivized everybody to stay through the last speech, right, to the last panel. And at a lot of other events, man, people just drop out after 3 or 4 p.m. Everyone's just done, and they try to go off to some other place. That was not the case. Literally at any decentral event that I've been to, but especially the 2021 event stands out in my mind as being like, you guys really did something magical with that event. I don't think I've been to any other event that was at that scale, especially not from a new team that just hit so hard. It was, yeah. So kudos again. Like you guys, I know everybody at LDA loved it too. It was only one of the few that everybody from LDA went to. So like,
yeah. Awesome. For us, we wanted to create an area for them to literally gather around. Like crypto was so fragmented at that time. I just wanted to bring the industry together. And then even at the end of it as well, it was like, you know, sometimes you don't stay, like it would feel bad because all of these speakers fly out. Everyone flies out. They spend money on their team to come out. They spend money on hotels and everything. Like all these companies, even though they're flying out, they're spending money to come out and speak. So it's like, even if the talk is at a later time of the day, like we don't want people to feel like, hey, look, you know, we're not going to go listen to them or stuff like that. It's like, no, it's like they spent money to come here on their dime. So it's like, we might as well give them the respect of like, hey, let me just listen in. And what we did as a little treat every single time is like, we would announce something at the end of our conferences every single time that would just make people go like, what the heck? So like in Miami, we announced Austin. We're like, hey, we're going to do Austin. And then after that, we announced like all the other stuff that we're doing. So like there's even one of them to where we would announce, we made a small announcement. We say, hey, just make sure your shirt has value. So if you go to other, you know, your shirt has value, but we didn't want to say what it was. And there was this guy that was at NFT NYC and he had on a Decentral shirt. And I literally went up to him. I was like, oh, cool shirt. Where did you get that from? He's like, oh yeah, I was at Decentral last year. And this, you know, this is where I got the shirt from, and you know they don't have it anymore and stuff like that. And I was like, "You're getting 2 VIP tickets to Decentral Miami 2022." He's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're just gonna get two free VIP tickets." He's like, "Well, you know, like, is it a campaign or something?" I was like, "I told the internal team if you ever see anyone at another conference that has a Decentral shirt, we're giving them tickets to our next event." Now that you're hearing this, don't I mean. Well, that was the campaign for 2021 and leading into 2022. Okay, there's other hidden features that we already placed down, but like each one was like there's hidden little Easter eggs that we place out, and the community is supposed to find them. They're not supposed to know. If it's a massive thing, then it's like everyone can get tickets and stuff like that. It's like we wanted to do small little Easter eggs for everybody.
Sure,
and that's what made it unique. And like all the marketing campaigns that I created, there's always little Easter eggs in each and every single one of them. Even if it looks like just a regular plain text campaign, there's something in there because I always place something a little bit personal in there.
Okay, that's awesome, man. So, and yeah, that speaks volumes to like why the experiences are as memorable as they are, is because you guys you're putting in that level of attention to detail. So not just the stuff that you see, but the stuff that you don't see, or maybe the stuff that you didn't look for but is there. There's very clearly a lot of intention in the events, and I think that's what comes through as somebody who who was an attendee and then has spoken on some of the stages at the events. Because I mean, again, I talk about like helping a little bit where I can, but like you guys, that level of intention and attention to detail, like that's something else. Let's shift gears here though, away from decentral, because that was largely, let's see, the last time that we spoke, or the last couple of events that I've gone to where it's been you and the team, the decentral team, right, the core team of you, Justin and Esther. I've been hearing you talk about a new product and platform that you're working on. So I was really hoping you could tell us a sneak preview, and I've got the website pulled up here, but tell us a little bit about this new venture that you've been building called it's Termina, right? Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. What is that all about? This is the site termina.io, right? But what is this?
Yeah. So we've been looking at ways to basically the next level in crypto is you come in as a speculator, and then you become a community member, and then you become a builder, right? And for us, we wanted to kind of start pushing into building a product that's going to be beneficial for the crypto ecosystem and really support and kind of provide, basically provide value back to the ecosystem that has given me so much. So we were looking at the different areas of what is going to be interesting. That's also going to be something that's it's going to be an area that isn't tapped into yet. So we looked at different structures in terms of like what is missing in crypto. DeFi has majority of the lending, staking, the kind of like perpetuals and all these things, but they didn't have the trust side. So for a while we were estimating like, what is this going to be a use case that's going to be something that's beneficial? And BlackRock came out with a statutory ETF, a statutory trust ETF. And I was like, this is kind of like one of the validation areas that we need this in crypto, because if BlackRock's now using a statutory trust as a legal structure to go onto the stock exchange, why doesn't crypto have any trust structures? And then I looked into real estate, and it's like, real estate isn't allowed on the blockchain yet. Some jurisdictions it is and stuff, but the majority of it is not in the US yet. So it's like, how do I incorporate a product that's going to incorporate trust structures and also incorporate the crypto side of it? So I started researching into trust, and we started looking into trust and kind of like building out our team. Trust structures haven't been revolutionized since the 12th century. It's one of the oldest structures that just hasn't been modernized yet. And we wanted to create something.
Interruption here. Let's talk about that for just a minute. Why? Right? Like most people, they see that, they're like, this is an industry that's ripe for disruption. It's like, I don't know, man. Is it? Like if you're whatever, there's certain sort of practices in terms of like whatever when it comes to agriculture that largely haven't changed, other than adding a tiny bit of automation through technology, but the fundamentals don't change. So why haven't trusts, or estate management, why do you think they haven't changed since the 12th century?
I think that for a lot of them, they feel like it is very complex, and the industry wants it to be complex, but it's not. So like they want it to be as complex as possible, because then the industry is able to benefit from it. So if people are like, hey, look, you don't know what a trust is, don't worry about it. This is for people that are, 6 figures and above or something like that. Like, this is for rich people only, or people that are going to be having multiple houses and all these things. That's totally untrue. You can have a trust structure for even like your personal side. Like for me, is like, I'm expecting to have a kid around December or January. And I always wanted to know, how do I give my son or my daughter my crypto wallet? Or how do I give them assets, whether it's going to be, money or, real estate, my house, things like that. How do I provide that over without mixing the two? So basically, like, I wanted it to be where you can now incorporate crypto into it. So instead of having a lawyer go up and say, hey, look, we'll do custodial, we'll take, X amount of fees or this and that. Some people would like to have that. Some people wouldn't, because then they'll feel like they're more savvy. So for me, I'm definitely teaching my it's going to be a boy. So I'm definitely teaching my son what is a crypto wallet early on, how to use it. And I'm also teaching my family so that they understand, just in case if anything happens to me, that they know what to do. And I wanted to place it into the trust. But the thing is, trusts are 40-page plus documents. You know, it has all these terms, all these services, all of these things that it's kind of like legalese, right? You're seeing all of these terms, all of these like big files, and it's like it can be simplified down to, hey, look, this is what I want to send to my son, this is what I send to my daughter, and we wanted to make something that's more simple for them. Because in a trust structure, you can have a trustee, you can have a beneficiary, you can say who gets what, so that it doesn't go into what is called probate. Probate is basically if you pass away, the state takes over all your assets and says, okay, cool, we're going to now divvy it up and we're going to take a fee off of that.
Yeah. They take their chunk, they take their fee. That's for sure.
They do, but it's something that's needed, right? Because like if they don't have a will, they don't have a trust, they don't know what you want as a person. So for them, they have to do their due diligence to see how to best actually place it out.
Yeah, I guess what I'm alluding to is the sort of typical government bloat, right? Of all services, right? Where things ironically tend to cost far more than they should and deliver far less than they should in terms of satisfactory outcomes. But yeah.
And for it's just easier if you just say, hey, look, I'm not paying you for it because we already have it here. Just delegate it out like this. And it's a lot easier that way. So I wanted to also incorporate crypto into it, but also incorporate different products into it. Roth IRA, 401k, HSA, SEP accounts and everything. It's like if I can place Bitcoin into a IRA and then enable DeFi into it, I can now have degen tax-free gains or tax-deferred gains, right?
Yeah. So you're talking like without getting, I've got to run the banner without getting
DYOR.
Yeah, don't make me tap on the glass, folks. But yeah, as far as things like checkbook IRA was that more recently was kind of considered the way to manage a portfolio within an IRA structure, but there are a lot of problems with it. Like you're saying, a lot of advisors, CPAs and stuff, or investment advisors, a lot of people who are very concerned about like, okay, am I doing this right? Am I doing it wrong? Could the person who was in charge of preparing this for a given client, could they face some kind of charges or some kind of like hard or something like? There, it seems like there are a lot of pitfalls, and there are very few organizations that really want to handle it. But you're talking about like having these traditional tax deferred or tax advantaged structures like an IRA or like an HSA, having this rolled into an on-chain bearer asset. Is that what I'm hearing?
We're having it rolled into the trust. So that structure is already currently available. It's just the next phase of it is allowing for a wallet to go into a trust and allowing for other interactions with it. So basically, like the current structure is already there. Think of it as like we're trying to build the 2.0 side of it. So like we'll have a digital dashboard. We'll have it to where you can create a trust pretty quickly. You can start doing onboarding into like an IRA structure and everything. Of course, with those financial partners, you're going to have to KYC, and it is going to be they're going to have to be a custodial depending on the accounts that you create. Like for a Roth IRA, you cannot be the custodial of that wallet. They'll generate a wallet. You could place and do whatever you want with it within that account. But we're just giving you guys the service, and you guys then do whatever you want with it. But you also have to know how to structure your trust. So it's like a lot of people are like, hey, look, I don't know what to do for the trust. It's like you basically set the terms. You set the standards that you want within that trust before you use it. So you set up who's the beneficiary, who's your trustee, who do you want to have in case if anything happens, what are the prerequisites of everything. You place it in there so that this is your vision of what this looks like. Because a trust technically is a one-way street. It's a one-way trust. The reason why I say that is because you can have a trust set and your daughter can be the beneficiary and she doesn't have to know about it. That's why it's like you trust this to create value for her or give assets to her later on. She doesn't have to know about it until later on. Within the terms, you could say, when I pass away, then you give her all the assets, right? So that's how usually trust structures are. It's like it's a one-way, unless you tell your son, it's like, hey, you got a trust fund, don't worry.
Yeah. I don't know. I think parenting is a topic for another conversation, but as far as the trust, like what you're saying, as far as what can be done, it sounds like you guys are open to, or with Termina, what it offers is all kinds of flexible approaches, so that whoever is using the product or the platform, they just decide, okay, well, this is a level of generosity they want to give to the beneficiary, like you're saying, naming the trustee, and and the management structure essentially, and maybe even the fee structure for administration of the trust. Just
you could say, hey, look, the trustee only gets $5,000 a year, or whichever amount. You can place it in there and say, this is within the terms of what I want for this trust. But then you have to put the requisites of, hey, look, if the trustee doesn't get paid, then X, Y, and Z, right? You can, just in case if the fund no longer has money, you give them other options and we place in there. The trustee technically doesn't have to manage the assets as well. So like the grantor is you can say, hey, look, this person is the trustee, and the trustee eventually could, they're going to have a responsibility to do their best job to make sure that this gets distributed and stuff. But you can even place it to where, this is where it's so fun and so interesting, because it can be as complex as possible, right? A trust fund, you can make it to where the beneficiary only, the trustee only knows about it after you pass away. And then it's his duty to then distribute the assets and stuff. But there's so many cool things with it.
Okay, got it. Yeah, this is definitely a much more complex topic. Here's what I'm going to do. We've gone past 45 minutes, which is a little longer than I asked you for in terms of time. But I'm fascinated by this. I think you already know. I think I've told you offline a couple of times where I'm like, dude, when it comes to estate planning, that has been the giant, the giant gap in crypto for a long, long time. I personally know somebody who was a content creator, right, who unexpectedly passed away, and his widow didn't know the password to his FTX account and didn't know where to find the seed phrases. His crypto all completely 100% died with him. And he's not alone. He's not the only person this has happened to in our industry. And gains from 4 or 5 years ago, gains from maybe 8 years ago in crypto, as you've seen with your own two eyes, right? We've all seen, they can be life-changing in a very short period of time. So, let's project 10, 20, 40 years into the future. Yeah, it's very possible that a lot of our cryptos today are going to be life-altering gains and form the basis, of an estate, of a trust that would totally change the lives of our offspring, right? So for me, like, the concept it resonated from day one when you first told it to me. Like, that's why I was so excited to talk to you about it here on Mind Your Biz. But what I'm hoping we can do, Michael, and we'll see if the Mind Your Biz community feels strongly about this, I would love to have you back on where we just do a deep dive into Termina. So Mind Your Biz audience, let me just ask you, smash the likes if you want this, make comments, be very vocal, retweet this, post it to Reddit, and make sure that there's confirmation that that they also see what I think I'm seeing, and what Michael and his team saw so clearly that they decided to build. That there's a need for decentralized trusts and better management of crypto funds. So we'll see what they do. Michael, in the meantime, I really appreciate your time so far. What's the question that I didn't ask you that I should have during our interview?
What did I have for lunch today? No, I'm just kidding.
Forgetting something, and there it is. Well,
no, I think you hit it all. And for me too, it's like, I really love these conversations because it's, we're free flowing. It's not scripted. We're not placing anything down. And I think that's like the same way as like everyone kind of like sees the industry as well. It's like, we're just going along with the industry. If anyone says that they can predict Bitcoin's price in 10 years or like things like that, I don't know. But like, also another thing, I think I told you about my uncle. He mined during Satoshi era and lost his Bitcoin.
Dude.
You met him in LA. But yeah, like basically he lost his Bitcoin, and he's like,
really cool.
I remember him reaching out to me when it was like 20K. It was 20K. And he was like, oh, I just cannot find it on this hard drive. And then afterwards, when it was like around 60K, he was like, no one talked to me. He was like, no one talked to me. I'm super depressed. And that's when I brought him out to Miami and everything. And I was like, hey, just come on out, see how the conference is, see how big the community has grown and everything. And he kind of like did a 180. He's like, getting back in.
Nice. Yeah, meeting me, very, very cool, super down to earth. But man, I cannot imagine having multiple blocks worth, right? 50, 100, a couple hundred Bitcoin that I just didn't know where they were. That would keep me up at night for sure. But let me ask you this, Michael, where can people find you? Or I should ask, better, where do you want people to go on the internet? What links should they follow? And what do you want them to do when they get there?
I would say Twitter is like my most prized possession, because I got the handle the degen boy, BOII. If you go on YouTube, I'm at non-fungible token. One day I will sell it to Mark Cuban. I think those are the two most popular ones. And just send me a message, even if it's just for like, hey Michael, I want to learn more about you, or hey Michael, I have a question about this. Because for me, it's like, it's all about giving back to the community that has given me so much. And it's literally like, builders are going to build. So I'm here to always support everyone that's building within crypto, as long as they're doing it in a proper way, and it's going to be in a positive for crypto. There's so many people that are like going into crypto for a cash grab. I would literally tell them, I'm not interested in working with you or like helping you at all if this is your narrative. But if you want to provide value and provide positivity, I'm all here to help.
Awesome. Well, Michael, appreciate you spending that time here and spreading positivity here on Mind Your Biz. And audience, you see the links to everything that he just mentioned down in the description. You have no excuse. It's one button press away. It's one click away. So obviously go and follow him there. Thank you again for joining us on Mind Your Biz. Really appreciate you, and as a person, but appreciate you spending the time here with me today.
And thanks for having me on. It's been a while. I've been like, when is he gonna get me on? No, just kidding. but thanks for taking me on, and also for that too. It's like we've been friends for a while, so it's like it's really good to kind of like have this conversation again, because right now I'm in building phase and I'm like heads down, just nonstop building, and I was like, I need to take a little bit of a breather and sit back.
Yeah, well, appreciate you again. Audience, click the links, smash like, share this. We will see you in the next one. Peace.